one is transit first policy. I know that there are some cities that have that. San Francisco's had one for numerous years, so I'd like to see if that's something the council wants to explore. I know maybe you could give it some more background.
I don't want to talk too much about it. I more or less, I want to clarify any questions that anybody has or what the purpose.
This is something San Francisco has?
Yes.
You're comparing us to San Francisco? What do you
San
mean?
Jose has it too.
Okay,
Or San
another
Jose.
large city.
Yeah.
So how would it affect Gilroy? So yes, do you explain?
Okay, so this came back from the VTA PAC meeting back in January, where they made a presentation on San Jose, who had a transit first policy, but they made a pitch basically to all the cities to develop this type of policy, and apparently their staff has already been in touch with our staff and talking about the benefits of it. The transit first priority policies are used by cities to improve travel speed, reliability, and overall appeal of public transit and make public transit operations more cost effective. One of the main reasons why they did this is because of an operational budget. So over time, buses have slowed down from 14 miles an hour to 11 miles an hour, or 20% over the last 3 decades. And it's because of congestion, it's because of traffic, but at the same time, there's no priority given as buses come, or light rail, come into intersections. So it could be a soft behind-the-scenes thing that none of us would even notice, where if they do a development or they're redoing an intersection, that they have cameras now that are already on our poles that can basically detect if a bus is coming through and give it maybe 3 or 4 more seconds on that green light rather than do the automatic switch. So it'd be something you wouldn't even pay attention or understand to. But there's 3 decades of adding buses to slowing routes of amounts to $70 million. Of efficiency.
Okay. I sit on the VTA board, so I'm and I've been with VTA, working with VTA for like 5 years, and none of these things apply to Gilroy. We don't have those same issues. We don't have light rail. We don't have buses that need to get through a light faster. They are issues up in San Jose. So I'm just going to say that this is certainly not something that we need yet. If we ever get the transportation that I've been fighting for here, then absolutely.
Actually, there's 3 buses, and you know this, and this point is not for me and you to argue back and forth. It's clarifying questions for everybody. It's great that you understand it, but we do have the 68, which is a 15-minute head count,
yes.
And you know that. We also have the 568, and you know that, and the 121.
A 15-minute what?
So 15-minute
15
headways,
minutes.
which means that every 15 minutes, the bus should be there at the bus stop. And the reason why this policy like this will help improve that and not get that worse, because what happens is that if they promise a 15-minute headway, well, let's say it expands out to 20 minutes, they add another bus. Mm-hmm. That's where you start adding more to the deficit there.
I feel like with our transit, our public transit, it's like chicken or the egg, right?
Yep.
It's like if we don't have the ridership, then they don't pay attention to us and try to allocate resources.
Right.
And I feel like this policy helps. This policy helps make improvements that make public transit more attractive and more feasible for people who need to use it.
That is true, and I want you to zone in on just thinking about the Monterey Corridor, just think about the 68 line, right, which has high ridership, and that's why it's funded, and the mayor knows that. So that's why we're focusing. Just focus on that. Don't focus on the ones that go for every hour.
If you're asking for just the 68 bus, then that's what you should say, because otherwise, Gilroy, which is part of Santa Clara County, shouldn't be compared. It's the argument I've been making at VTA and Caltrain. Our ridership numbers can't be compared to other cities because we're the only city with Morgan Hill, Gilroy and Morgan Hill, that doesn't have the same level of transit service, either train or bus. And ridership is absolutely driven by frequency. And we have the least frequency, so it's not an apples to apples comparison, because more people might ride if we had the same frequency that other cities do.
And how
so
do we get that frequency?
by having more buses and more trains.
Okay.
That's how you get the frequency.
Is there any benefit to this policy to getting us more buses and more trains?
Not yet, as I see it. It's too.
That's not the point
Does
of
it set the path?
Yes. You want to talk about playing nice in an atmosphere, especially with the policy, like a transit first policy. It's not funding. You're not adding anything extra. We already do this. There's a development that's happening right now that's going through its environmental review where they're requiring the developer to make enhancements to the bus stop in front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Jimmy, maybe you need to tell us what this means of staff, because at this point,
Yeah.
this is council's trying to prioritize,
Right.
and where does this fall under the list of items, things that are important?
And also at the same time, if anybody else has questions, that's what this is for.
Yeah. I just, if I may, Jim, I mean, for me, someone who takes the 68 and the 568 and, you know, everything, light rail and the train, I mean, again, I think that was a good question that Councilmember Almaderas asked. Will this help, you know, bring more of these to Gilroy? But again, I also want to know, just the question the mayor just asked, how much staff time is this going to, you know, put on us? But I would vote in favor of it, because someone who's been using public transportation for 20, 30 years, I see it as a benefit. So,
Thank you for using public transportation.
Actually, I'm going to ask our community development director to come help you through the next three, because
Okay.
I'm quite. We're in the details, which is fine, and that's good to place. But I can't help you there, and I think Sharon has spent a lot of time on these topics and can give you a better answer than I could.
Okay.
So.
Can't hear.
Thank you. Okay, so do you want me to just expand a little bit on the
10,
transit?
11, and 12.
Yeah, we definitely focusing on transit-oriented development, and actually, I think a lot of state laws over the last couple of years have been kind of requiring us to go toward that. So, you know, just kind of speaking to one of the examples from Councilmember Hilton. Like, for example, one of the state laws that was passed last year that became effective this year, January 1st, it pretty much really doesn't, you know, let cities put on any parking requirements. I shouldn't say additional, just no parking requirements if they're within half mile of transit. So those are things we're implementing already through state legislation.
But Sharon, just to clarify for everybody, that's if it's within a half a mile of transit, or whatever the distance is, transit that comes with a frequency of every 15 minutes.
Correct.
And we only have the 68 bus for that, which would mean only along Monterey. Okay.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure
Yeah.
everybody
They're all-
understands that.
yes,
It's
they're all
not
those
around any
definitions.
transit. It's just around transit that comes every 15 minutes. And we have only one thing that does that.
One of the 5 routes, only one does.
No. Yes, only one bus in Gilroy, whether it circulates through Gilroy or goes out of Gilroy, which is what the 568 and 68 do. They go out of Gilroy.
Right.
Only the 68 comes every 15 minutes. Not even a train comes every 15 minutes. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that was it. On that one,
Well, I guess what I would like to know is how much staff time would be needed to deal with this, as it seems like we're not really ready as a city to jump into this transit first policy because of our size and the low ridership. So how much time would you need?
Okay, but hold on. I want to try to pitch something to you.
All right.
Because you're saying that we don't have ridership. Was the 68 not one of the most funded? The reason why it was funded is because of ridership?
Not arguing with the 68.
Okay, so.
It's not a commute bus, though. It's not a bus that gets people to their jobs.
Oh, come
Okay.
on. You got to
Yeah,
be kidding
the
me.
folks
Seriously?
that I know that take the 68, that's what
So
they do.
Councilmember Tovar doesn't need to go to his job?
it's-
Like,
Including
don't.
Fred.
He doesn't take this. You take the 568, don't you?
I sometimes I have to take the
Express.
60.
Okay, let's
yeah.
retract that
He
and
takes
get
the
back to what.
568.
Historically, it was a 68.
Can you
and
see
then
how
we
it would
added
help
5.
us? Like, it would help to keep those. Let's just get it really down. On the 68, it would help to keep that every 15 minutes, the person that's relying to get to their job, to not allow VTA to say, well, I can't meet it 15 minutes anymore because your guys' downtown corridor is only 2 lanes and it takes our buses forever to get through there. But what you could do, the city of Gilroy, is really help us out by changing the way the lights work, so that way if there's a bus that's coming through and it's about to turn red on that bus, it gives them an extra 3 or 4 seconds to go through. That's how this will make it.
I understand that part, but I'm wondering how many people would really be using that bus that this would matter.
The 68 is heavily used. It was one of the ones
So
that
you're
was
saying the
funded.
68 then would be the only one that would be affected by these lights?
Yes, that we could actually help them.
That would help them to get up to San Jose.
Or down, or back home to Gilroy.
You know,
Right.
Or Morgan Hill.
Or Morgan Hill.
Okay, let's let
Okay,
Sharon
the
finish.
staff time. Yeah, how much staff time would you need?
Sorry.
I think staff time could depend on kind of the scope of what, elements you would like to study. Like I mentioned, some of the aspects as far as transit-oriented development, we are kind of implementing state laws already. But I think some of the, elements I'm hearing, it's not necessarily, related to development, but it's actually using transit and in frequencies and,
And just like the other ones you had talked about, both of you, about like the drive-through, over near residential and the beekeeping, this is not something that we would just be like, I have no idea what this is going to do, and staff sits down and just starts writing. There are already models out there. We have partnerships on the VTA. They are willing to give technical assistance to us to help us write a policy, if not draft the same thing that the rest of the cities are trying to do, so we're all on the same page. So yes, it is staff time, but just remember too, and they understand this too, that they can leverage another organization that is right here with us, that want to partner with us.
I guess that's what I want to hear if I'm going to say yes to this, because we're always hearing staff doesn't have enough time, so we're rearranging some of the items that we're talking about, and I don't want to see something else booted because staff doesn't have enough time to do it because they're working on this. So do you think it's feasible for you to borrow or use someone else's plan to present to the council, where it doesn't take you hours and hours and hours to write something on your own?
I think we can utilize the VTA's technical assistance.
Okay.
And I don't know if at this point I can really give you a good sense of the exact amount of time, but after we explore that further.
Do you feel good about this? I mean, I don't want you sitting here going, oh my God, I just got something else on my plate, and, No, but this also...
We can't ask her that in front of council.
Yeah.
Well, I would expect you to be honest with us. This is we're trying to look at projects.
Put her on the spot.
No, I mean no ill asking you that question.
Yeah, I think Jim mentioned that one approach is you might want to look at this from, kind of the three categories we were thinking about earlier, if it's mandatory or core or discretionary.
Okay.
And the transit-oriented development, like I mentioned, because of implementation of state law, that aspect would be mandatory, but I think some of the other aspects, we were talking about,
Sharon, let me ask
not
this.
necessarily.
Let me ask this question, and I think Councilmember Hilton just said, if there's already a policy like this in place from the VTA or from other cities, could we not just, again, instead of reinventing the wheel, just sort of use their model that's working and say, okay, you know what, let's just verify the information, make sure it works, fits Gilroy, and so it really reduces the amount of city staff time. We have something already there. We're not inventing something here. We have VTA or whomever has this in place, and if it's us reaching out to them, whatever it may be, then it kind of reduces the work on staff. And I appreciate all of you, and you guys all know that, but I hate making decisions based off of, we're giving city staff more work. And I understand where we're at city staff-wise, but if it's an important policy, and again, it'll be what the majority of the council decides, but if there's already something in place, we can just utilize that, right?
Can I make a brief comment?
Yes.
That is always what we do. With any kind of policy like this, we look at other cities, we look at the VTA, then we try to figure out, does it make sense for Gilroy from what we know, and then we bring something to the council with what we think makes sense. It's not a simple process to do it. I don't want to say it's this particular one is difficult or not, but that is the process we always follow through. But it's never quite as simple as you say. I have to say that.
Exactly, and that's what I was hoping that staff would tell us what their position is. Like, if the majority of this council says keep that on, what is that likely going to mean?
Could I offer a suggestion? And I think this is a very big piece, education needed, but there are some mandatory things that we need to do. So I'd ask council to let us start with the mandatory, bring that to you, and then you can identify some pieces that you want to work on together. That might be just a good foundation to start, because I think there's some education here that could be utilized, and there's interest too. So that I think that would be a good balance if that's okay with council.
So you're saying leave it?
Leave it, but with the asterisk that we'll start with discretionary, or with mandatory, and then just see where we go.
Okay. So do we need to go through 11 and 12?
I would like to. Yes.
Okay.